All right, hello, and thanks for joining us on this free training on the 5 most common mistakes you could be making with your China marketing and what to do about it. So, before we start, I'm your host and instructor for today. My name is Vincent. So, just a little bit a brief background about me. I have over 20 years in sales and marketing in international markets. I've started 2 businesses from scratch. So the first one is a global training company called Ethan Hathaway. And we have multinational corporate clients throughout Asia, Middle East, Europe, Africa, and North America. The second business that I started is called Virtual Tree, which is a digital marketing unagency, and I'll explain later as to what that means. And we specialize in B2B service and knowledge expert type businesses. So to start off, let me start off with this story. So a while back, the Asian media covered a lot of stories about how beggars and homeless people in China were begging for money using the WeChat mobile app to receive payments. Now that's how savvy and how mobile payments has penetrated the China market. Even the homeless and beggars have gone cashless, have moved towards mobile payments. And that's how big a penetration that WeChat has in China. The other thing is that WeChat users in China has grown past 1 billion users per month in 2018. So naturally, that's what most people and businesses naturally flock to first when it comes to trying to enter the Chinese market or to do marketing within China. And that leads on to the very first quote unquote mistake that businesses make, assuming that WeChat is the one and only channel to target to reach the Chinese market. Now, at the beginning, if you wanted to start marketing with WeChat and you were a non-Chinese business entity or a non-Chinese business, you would need to commit at a minimum about $30,000 US dollars in just ad spend alone. Okay, so that is purely just ad spend that you would have to commit in order to even begin marketing through WeChat. Okay, we're not even getting into how you need to register a Chinese entity. Also, the fact that the WeChat version that mainland Chinese people have access to and use is actually different from the WeChat version that everybody else outside of China uses. Okay, so just having to commit at least $30,000 in ad spend alone, that made it relatively out of reach for a lot of businesses, especially small and medium-sized businesses. Now, but what if I were to tell you that WeChat is only a fraction of what you could be using to target Chinese buyers? And you wouldn't have to spend nearly as much to test out the China market. Now, if that's something that interests you, then stay and watch to the end of this video where I show you how you can do this, okay? So here you can just see a nice snapshot of actually all the various media and Chinese media and online channels or digital channels that we can actually use to reach the Chinese market. So it's not just WeChat. So WeChat's right here, right? So you can see all these other platforms and channels. So the first common mistake that people make is that if you only focus on WeChat. Now, let me tell you about this one time where I spoke to this business owner who is based in the UK, and he runs a food product type business. He wanted to sell, I think, British made or British produced honey products into China, and he wanted to sell that online. Now, so I told him that, well, especially with food products, it's a highly regulated product category in China. And I told him you need to do a lot of research before you start, like, putting money or investing money in marketing and selling to your products into China, right? Um, Now he thought it was no problem because his his point of view was that, oh well, his products aren't being produced in China. He's only selling into China. Then he didn't see what could be the problem, and he's shipping his products directly from the UK. So he thought that that was perfectly fine and no problem, right? But that is exactly where the problem lies. I tried to explain to him that while a Chinese customer may be able to order from him on his website, and maybe they make a payment to him, and then he receives the order and payment, and then he'll ship out his honey-based product. However, because food products such as honey is so highly regulated, once it reaches the customs department in China, it's very likely that it would be confiscated upon entering China, and they could just hold it and never, forward it on to his customer, right? So the problem that would arise is that you have a customer who paid, right? The vendor has shipped out the product, but the product never reaches your customer and may never ever be released, or even, there's no way to even probably track it or what happened to it, right? So then what will happen is your customer will say, hey, where's my product? I ordered this and I paid for it, and you're like, well, I shipped it, I didn't, I haven't done anything to it. I fulfilled my end, right? So what's happened is both parties, the vendor and the buyer, have fulfilled their part of the transaction, except that they haven't accounted for the regulations or the customs department. So in this case, what happens? Your customer can actually easily just say, hey, I want a refund or send me another one. So what happens here? You can see the vendor is actually losing money, right? And the customer may or may not, reorder from them again, or they may not even want to, they're not going to pay for it again, right? So you can see what the problem that arises, right? So if you don't do enough research. So that's mistake number 2, not doing enough due diligence. Now we actually will help to a certain extent in terms of due diligence when it comes to certain products. We can give you a bit of at least our expertise and advisory in terms of whether your product or service could be something that could be problematic before you start investing in a huge marketing campaign. Now, the next item is, now not every website or business is going to have, multi-languages or multilingual translation of your website, right? But the issue is that if you're going to be marketing into China, at least doing digital marketing in China, even if you don't translate your entire website, the landing page or your campaign landing page will need to be in simplified Chinese and hosted on a web server that can be accessed in China. Okay, so now that's why a lot of Chinese internet users may not necessarily be able to access websites that are hosted outside of acceptable web server geolocations. So it'll only be on web servers that are either within China or Hong Kong. Now, you may have heard of the infamous Chinese firewall, which blocks Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, etc. So what most non-Chinese businesses don't realize is if your landing page is not in simplified Chinese, nor hosted on an acceptable geographic web server, then your ad and your entire campaign will likely be rejected by the censorship committee. And yes, you heard that right. All digital ads and campaigns will go through the Chinese censorship committee for approval. Okay, and that's everybody and everything. Okay, so this can be a very painstaking process, but of course, if you need help with that, this is something that we can do to help with making it less painful. So mistake number 3 is not having your ads and landing pages, or at least your campaign assets in simplified Chinese, and not using the appropriate web hosting. Now, for the next mistake, let me tell you another case where I spoke to this one business owner who had already invested in producing a professionally produced video ad, and his ad included a Japanese samurai sword to show how his product, how strong his product was. That it was his product was able to withstand a blow from a samurai sword. So he thought it was pretty clever type of ad. And I mean, under normal circumstances, it would be a pretty nice looking ad. However, when we spoke to him and we evaluated this, we told him that, hey, you know what, your video ad may not resonate well, or it may not even get approved to be used in the Chinese market, because due to the history between China and Japan. Now, unfortunately, this business owner, he was just too proud of his video to listen to us, and since we knew what he was planning would pretty much not work at all, he didn't really consider our advice, so we pretty much had to walk away from this prospective client, despite our warnings. Now, I'm sure that there would probably be some other agency who would just be happy to take his money and just try to run the campaign for him, or not, probably even have it get rejected probably. At least the results will, I'm pretty sure, are going to be pretty bad, if not horrible. But that's not something that resonates really well with our business values. So that leads on to mistake number 4, which is having content that doesn't resonate with Chinese audiences. So not everything will culturally transfer to the Chinese market. Okay. So when people talk about the Chinese market, right, this is the one thing that is most common that I hear from everybody. It's that, and you can see I guess it's kind of the greed in people. Yes, because China's internet population is well over 770 million people at this time of publishing for this video. And yes, even if you get even just a fraction of that market, it can be quite huge for any type of business, right? Now, if you want to build and grow your market in China, the thing is, it takes time, okay? And you need a proper strategy. Okay, it's not just a matter of just shotgunning it and just running some kind of, or launching some kind of one-shot campaign, and then all of a sudden you have all this avalanche of sales come in. That it doesn't work like that, okay? And it's also unrealistic. But I know that when people think of the China market, they kind of have they envision this sort of avalanche of sales and all these people that make up this market. So if your expectations are too unrealistic, and if you expect that you're going to see this massive success with your first launch or campaign, you're just going to be setting yourself up for unrealistic expectations. Okay, so you need to temper what your goals are for your campaign. And that is something that we will help you with. And tempering your expectations is key. It's just like any other type of marketing campaign into any other type of foreign market. Okay? So that's mistake number 5, having unrealistic expectations from your China marketing campaigns. Now, as we said at the very beginning, when you think about marketing in China, usually, especially for non-Chinese businesses or foreign companies, the first 2 platforms that come to mind usually are WeChat and Weibo. However, if you're only focusing on these 2 platforms, you're actually missing out on a huge part of the market. And not to mention, if you're an overseas business that wants to get started on WeChat, it is very expensive. So like I originally said, you would need to at least commit about $30,000 US in ad spend alone. Okay. And that's before you add in any sort of agency fees and creative fees, etc. And that made it out of reach for a lot of smaller businesses, other than like the big brands with deep pockets, right? However, now Through us, Virtual Tree, you can test the China market without needing super deep pockets. And even if you have super deep pockets, at least you can test the market without having to invest too much upfront. See, we have partnered with one of the biggest demand side platforms in China. Okay. And we help to bring it to smaller, small to medium businesses. And through us, you can have access to this massive ad media network to reach the Chinese market. So you can see here, there's at least about 32 ad exchanges at this time of publishing. Websites that can give you about 12 billion daily impressions. On mobile, again, 12 billion daily impressions. Video sites, Chinese video sites with 5 billion daily impressions. That's the kind of exposure that we can help get you for your product or service and your business in China without having massively deep pockets. But not only that, through us, we can help you. At this time of publishing, there was at well over 6,000 type of targeting criteria and leveraging massive data points and big data on the Chinese consumer. Now just think about that. So here's 6 reasons why you should choose Virtual Tree to help you manage your China marketing campaigns. So 1, we focus on key performance indicators or KPIs that matter to you and your business. We don't focus on what we call vanity metrics. So it's not just about impressions. It's not just about clicks. We want to help you build and grow your business. And what does that mean? That involves at the ultimate goal is helping you try to generate sales and finding the right type of customers that will spend money with you. Number 2, second reason is exclusivity. So we're very protective of our clients. So as long as you are a paid and retained client of ours, we do not sign any other client that is a direct competitor of yours. Okay, so you can have peace of mind that we're not helping your competitors and, like helping a whole bunch of like companies in the same industry and space. Helping you just sort of fight one another. Okay, so we won't do that. Once you are our paid and retained client, we're only looking out for you. Third reason is you have our full attention. Okay, we only take on a limited number of clients and never overstretch ourselves, so you get the attention that you deserve. Number 4, the fourth reason is we don't say yes to everything. Okay, so remember the story about that business owner I mentioned who produced that video with the Japanese samurai sword. Now, I'm sure that there are agencies or freelancers who are more than happy to just say yes to him and just take his money and just run the campaign as he wants, despite, they don't care whether the guy gets results or not. They just say, oh yeah, I can do that for you, right? But we don't want to do that. So we don't say yes to everything. If we feel like, hey, it's gonna be a train wreck, we don't want you to do that to yourself, we're gonna tell you. Now, whether you listen to us or not, we can't help that. So in those cases, we do tend to walk away. Because we just don't want to be a part of that. Okay, we want to be able to help you succeed, and if it looks like we can't help you do that, then we're just going to walk away. Okay, so every deal, so we do our best to manage expectations and not to overpromise things that we can't deliver on. The 5th reason is we've got over at least 20 years of marketing experience. Now, that's me. So that's over 2 decades of marketing experience in international markets. And I will always share the lessons I've learned and any sort of input I can into your campaigns. Okay. And the final and 6th reason is that, we are constantly learning and growing from the best marketing minds and experts in the world. Okay, we believe in keeping ourselves sharp. So we are always investing in ourselves. We're taking courses from some of the best in the industry, and we're always learning about the latest strategies. So not just tactics, but we're learning about the strategies that, the most successful businesses and people are using, so we can pass that on to you. So if all of this sounds really good to you, if you want to get started with your China marketing campaigns, or if you have any questions about it, then please just reach out and contact us. This is our email address here at sales@virtual-tree.com. Please get in touch with us to get started.